public familiar with it. I'm not saying that we do it all the time, but we need to do it enough where people get familiar with the ordinance and they know that you cannot park a car there for 3 months on the side of the road on city property. Or if a vehicle is bothering the neighbor, depending, because remember, people park their antique cars there, they cover them up, or they become elderly and they no longer are able to drive. But I don't think we feel that we have to make them get rid of their vehicle on that, you know? If they could just call the city hall and say, hey, my grandfather is no longer driving no more, that's his vehicle, but we'll go ahead and clean it up. Or if it's not parked correctly or whatever. But I think we need to do a better job at notifying the public that we're gonna start enforcing this ordinance. And I think by putting it in the paper, because not a lot of people have social media. And us as a city, we depend on getting the word out through our social media. There's a lot of people that don't look at that. They do pick up and buy a paper, a newspaper.
Right. So
we need to, when we put in this on our social media sites, we need to put in the paper.
Right.
The other question I have is with Bobby, when coming to this, I know that a motion's been made, but whenever a motion is made and we have to add something to it, do we have to rescind that motion back? Because I thought we were to make a motion to discuss, and then a motion, because just because we motion, right now I'm thinking about it, some things that I agreed on, they could be motion different if we're with, you know.
Amend your motion.
Amend the motion, because right now we motion to agree on this. If we're gonna add something to it, we have to rescind that motion and make a motion to rescind something. That's if we decide to do that.
Right, and you have a number of options. Amendment is one, withdrawal is another, or to take action on the motion on the table. So to answer your question, yes, you always have the option.
I've just got a little confused with right now
Sure.
with it, because if a motion is being made differently, we're motioned to talk about it, but if we agree on something totally different, that becomes a different motion.
Right.
Okay.
Amend, is that the way, that's the way you said it?
That would be, yes, and then there would have to be an acquiescence acceptance on the person who made the original motion to accept the amended motion, and that'd be one way of handling it, and then you vote on the amended motion.
Part of what was added again was making sure that, because I agree with Bobby, where people have the issues is when you're affecting their property. You demolish a structure that they feel was worth $1 million, and some people would consider it to be a nuisance, right? Or you take their junk vehicle that we would consider junk that they may think is valuable. So when we start talking about, there's extra processes in here for that, meaning we're gonna send letters, they have 15 days to respond to, we're gonna go out there, make sure they get a letter, and if we can't get a letter, similar to what the meeting is requesting, we're gonna give all that information to the municipal court and say, these are the efforts that we went to make contact with this person, and then let the municipal court decide, okay, you've done your due diligence, whatever that case may be, and if we haven't done enough, essentially the judge or a municipal court will throw it back and say, hey, look, you guys need to go out and do X, Y, and Z. But we can't, I can see the sensitivity if we just go and pick up a vehicle and there's nothing, but, you know, we don't go before municipal court or anybody else or even the council to explain what we did. So you remember your dilapidated structures. When we do that, we're gonna come to you to request authorization to demolish those structures, and we have to do that. The same thing would be with these junk vehicles. We have to come to municipal court to get these vehicles and make sure that we're doing our part.
Mayor, one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
So now, okay, that was with the junk vehicles. Now with the weedy properties that are causing nuisance to the neighbors, with homeless people living there, with people going out there doing drugs on those properties. With this ordinance that passes, if it passes the way it's written, are we able to go out there as a city and clear it out? Meaning cutting the grass, getting those homeless people out of there, and then, well, we probably won't be able to get the homeless people out there. But if we're cleaning it up and making sure that there's not, you know, that they're not being a nuisance to the neighbors, then we put that lien on that property. So when they do decide to sell that property, that lien is on there and they come back later on and we get taken care of.
On the liens, do we get, just to make sure I wrote this right, or we got it straight, the lien can be created after the work has been done, is that?
Yes.
Mhm.
And it's simply, what San Antonio does is they, typically when they're talking about subdivisions, they've got just a lot. So they have a set, cost to abate, and they bid it out. So they have contractors go out there, when they clean the lot, set price. San Antonio typically adds a 50% administrative fee on top of that. And then they assess the bill of costs, incorporate that into a lien, and file it. And if they go out there 3-4 times a year, they're filing 3-4 liens a year. But yes, it's after the work has been done, so on the front end, and the nuisance ordinance tracks state law. So on the front end, you're notifying people and you're asking them to take care of it, because code enforcement has already gone out. But if they ignore the notice, the statutory, what the state law says you have to do, if they ignore it, you go out there and you clean it, you assess the cost through the lien, and then you just move on until the next time code enforcement goes out to see if it's being complied with, and, you know, and you just keep repeating the process as often as staff does it or council is willing to do it. And the nuisance ordinance, since it's 20+ years old, Fred was trying to get it to become current with what state law is, like the junk vehicle, for example. The ordinance is tracking state law, but that doesn't mean you can't, when you're trying to get this off the ground, go above and beyond in terms of public notice and dissemination of information and so forth. Because this is just, it's just a floor and not a ceiling. So you can certainly direct staff to say, we want it on the website, we want it in the paper for so many weeks or so many, we need to get the information out there. You can also say, in addition to a certified mail, we want you to send regular mail.
Right.
Because a lot of people won't go pick up their certified mail, but they think it's safe to open their regular mail, and they will. And that just helps get the information out. Because all you ever want to do is you want them to clean it themselves and keep it clean for everybody's sake.
Very
Okay.
good. Councilwoman, if you care to make an amendment, you go ahead and do that, and then we'll go back to who made the first and second. And if you agree with that, then we'll vote on your amendment. So
Okay.
is there any other questions regarding this item?
No. I would,
Yeah, did someone say yes?
No,
Okay.
there was a question up there on the chat, but I'm not sure if I can answer that.
Okay, we have from Brianna Segura, what training does the MACE officer have when addressing these violations?
They go through a state regulated training, through TDLR, and they get certified. It's a 1-week course, and they also go through a 1-year, regulated, again, certification with a certified code enforcement officer. In other words, they go through orientation for a whole year. So it takes a while before you get actually certified as a code enforcement officer. If the city does not have a certified code enforcement officer, the TDLR allows us to join with another city or another city entity that's, that would allow us to have their code enforcement officer who is registered to supervise our training code enforcement officer.
Very good. So, Councilwoman, if you care to make an amendment, we'll go back to who made
Yes,
the first
Mayor.
and second. And if
I
they
would-
accept that, we'll move forward.
okay, Mayor, I would like to make a motion to go ahead and approve, city ordinance, 2022-0506, proposing the revisions of chapter 32 of the Code of Ordinance with the revision of, contacting the people by newspaper as well.
Okay, our motion was made by Councilwoman Hernandez. So are you okay with that amendment? So there's a motion to approve the amendment as reported by Councilwoman Reed. Our second was done by Councilman Gondeta. Do you concur with that, sir? He does. Okay, at
It's
this
just
point,
with the reference of junk vehicles, is that right? Is that for that part of the ordinance you're not talking?
Yes, for junk vehicles only.
okay, very good. Well, we have a motion to second on the amendment. Any other questions? Being none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, thank you very much, council. Moving on to item 9G. Discuss and consider ordinance number 2022-0507, amending section 1 through 13 of the city code of ordinance to provide for a special expense fee for the dismissal of certain violations. This is an action item. I'm gonna call for a motion. A motion, please.
Motion.
Second.
The motion by Councilwoman Hernandez, there's a second by Councilman Hernandez. At this point, Fred, you have the floor.
Yes, and I'll probably ask Bobby to explain some of this, but this kind of dovetails into what we just talked about. But Bobby, you want to explain this better?
Sure, and we had talked about this previously, which was simply to allow the municipal court judge in his discretion, when dismissing certain violations of the Code of Ordinances, to assess a $25 administrative fee. Essentially, when he allows people to comply with an ordinance prior to making them go through the process. That is, if somebody gets a weedy lot citation and they come into municipal court and the ordinance allows for them to remedy that, that is, clean it up, they come to the judge and say, Judge, I fixed it, code enforcement confirms that, the judge can dismiss that violation and assess a $25 administrative fee. That's what this is for, to allow him to assess at least some fee to recoup some of the expenses in doing so. It's not gonna come close to what the city actually spends in trying to enforce its ordinances, but allows him to do, to at least assess something. What we did to simplify it is we're amending, or proposing to amend section 1-13 of the Code of Ordinances, which is your penalty provision in the entire code. So basically what it says is, anytime there's a violation where the default is the penalty provision for the entire code, that's where the judge's authority resides. So what happens is a lot of the codes have their own penalty provisions, but we have a general penalty provision. You don't want to assess the $25 administrative fee on all cases because they simply do not apply. For example, traffic violations. So these are primarily directed at nuisance violations. And so it's limited to those. And that's the purpose of this particular ordinance. So it gives the judge the authority in the general penalty section of the Code of Ordinances, just say, if the violation reflects back to 113, and most of them do, then the judge, in his discretion, can dismiss and assess. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mayor,
Councilwoman.
we have the municipal judge here. This would have to be with the municipal judge, correct? Have y'all discussed this with the municipal judge?
Expense fee, I believe?
Yep. We've talked about those, yeah, when we had our sessions in the back.
Yes, I've spoken, the judge and I have spoken, and I urged the city manager to look into it as well.
Okay.
Judge?
Can he talk with?
Yeah, I was kind of late notice, and I was informed, and so far as what the city attorney is saying, that's a good implementation, because it allows another option, for the people that have the nuisance. And that can be applied as well to your junk vehicles, because if the person comes in and goes, hey, yes, I'm talking about junk vehicles that's on blocks, don't have doors, stuff like that. It's a good option that we can tell the person, hey, you have 30 days to remedy, or 2 weeks to remedy the problem. And the ball can be put back in their court. See what I'm saying? Hey, you get a record, take it to the junkyard, get pennies on the dollar. It saves space. We get what the city wants, the cleanup, and we can file the city ordinance compliance. Everybody gets what they want.
They can prove if it's an antique vehicle, if somebody's in the house and they can't reach the front door, this will prevent stuff like that.
And what I'm getting at with this too, that's good communication. The question was, I wanted to make sure that our municipal judge was aware of this, because when
And that's an excellent point, because, and Judge, it may have gotten lost during the course of the conversations we've had over the past several months. We first talked about this when we had a few issues with junk car situations, junk vehicle situations, and weed lot situations that municipal court was dealing with. And that's when we first started talking about the potential of giving the court discretion to get it remedied at the court and assessing the special expense fee. But the reason why I say it may have gotten lost, because we've had a number of conversations in here
Yes.
and in the back with a whole bunch of people, and this was just like one of a whole bunch of things we were talking about. But to answer your question, yes, we had discussed this a long time ago, but during the course of discussing a whole bunch of different things, and it took us a while to get here.
Okay. I would just like to make a comment that when we discuss stuff like this, Mr. Reyes, I would like the municipal judge to be in there while decisions are being made. I would prefer the
This-
municipal
this-
judge over a council member. In there.
I
Okay.
think with the, so you know, the code, the change to the nuisance orders was emailed, I think everybody had a chance to review it, which include the municipal court judge, the city attorney, and the police chief.
The judge was at all the
I
meetings.
You know, I get the emails too, but I'm just saying, you know, I would like more than just an email. You know, we get a lot of emails. You know, knock on the door, say, hey, this is gonna be at a council meeting. Do you wanna join us? And put, you know, what you're seeing as they're coming in, or what you're hearing in our town, because he is our municipal judge. And he's gonna be, handling these cases, and we need to include him in it.
But I can assure you, Councilwoman, that our first meeting was in the back, the judge was present, a whole bunch of, we had another meeting here. The judge has been at all those meetings, but again, I can see where this specific topic can get lost, because some of our meetings lasted an hour or two or more, and we talked about a whole bunch of different things.
Yes.
All right, council, thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Hearing no other questions, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to item 9H. Discuss and consider authorizing the city manager into a professional service agreement for the architectural services of Deborah Dockery, Architect PC. This is an action item. I will call for a motion and a second. Motion by Councilman Hernandez. Second? Second by Councilwoman Hernandez. City manager?
Yes, this is, we awarded, this architectural service agreement to, Ms. Doctor. She was one of two architects that we recommended. And so this was at the last meeting. And so this is actually the actual agreement. We had not, I wasn't able to get a task order ready for you for this meeting, but I will have one at the next meeting. Part of that task order, as we've talked about, as part of the budget, was to get some work going on the Civic Center, the tourism building, the restrooms at Polo Patino, and we did mention some Civic Center improvements, but that first task order we received, hopefully the next meeting will include some work to get that going as far as those projects. And the funding for this will come for, at least for these projects that we have coming up, will come from hotel occupancy tax, and there's some dollars that have been budgeted for this fiscal year for some of that work.
Mayor, if there's no other questions, I'd like to vote be called, since we did discuss this at the last meeting.
Okay. You might say that again? We've already made a motion,
Oh,
a second.
I just can't get used to that. That's
Very-
just
very
out of
good.
my.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no
Blows
other
my mind.
questions, I'll call for a motion to approve. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. All right, folks, at this time, it is 7:14. We are going into executive session. Folks, we've got a few items, and we'll be back in a minute.
I'll look at the